تقرير ماجد الكيلاني report. Now we welcome Daniel Kawczynski, Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury. And which select committees are you in now this year?
None.
Really?
I'm just focusing on relations with Poland.
Right, very important.
And really getting under the skin of trying to understand that country's perspectives for us to work with in the post-Brexit world. I think it's going to be very, very important when we pull out of the European Union that certain members of Parliament focus on nurturing bilateral relations with key European countries.
Just to explain to our viewers, actually, Daniel was born in Poland, so still got a connection, and he's very well respected there. We talk about something else, which we suppose the conference on Wednesday, your party conference, government, focus on EU, it being hijacked by fit of cough. Actually, I got you this. This is actually a cough mixture there. And this as well.
Well, I might take one, yeah.
Just in case, yeah, anyway.
Very good, very good.
Right. Well, you have to sympathize with the old girl.
Well, it's not the personality which is really important for me. I know that the media are fascinated with coughing fits or personality issues.
Or P45?
P45. That's one aspect. I'm much more interested in the hardcore policy on Brexit.
Okay. On the hardcore policy, we have an MP who, PM, who was a Remainer, but now she says she's going to deliver Brexit. And then we see how her misfortune, let's put it lightly, happening. There was MPs talking about asking her to leave. I don't want to embarrass you, but where do you stand?
Well, I support the Prime Minister. I don't think that the Conservative Parliamentary Party has anybody better than her to lead the party in the country at this moment in time. But I am very, very concerned about the proposals for a transition period and some sort of a compromise with the European Union. What I want to avoid at all costs is the opportunity for a fudge to take place, which could be then unravelled. So Brexit could be unravelled by a future Labour government. That I see as a huge threat to the sovereignty and constitution of our country and to the process of consulting with the electorate. And I'm scrutinising, as are other MPs, very, very carefully what they are proposing in terms of this transition period going forward.
Diplomatic answer. Be careful what you wish for. Let's take a break now. والآن نذهب للاستراحة قصيرة نعود بعدها إلى. Back to Daniel. Before I ask you about politics, very important. You know the High Court rejected this bloke Conway. He wanted to change the Suicide Act to end his life. You MPs refused to change that to give people the right to die because they think it can be abused.
Well, actually, interestingly, he is a constituent of mine, this gentleman. And historically, of course, yes, many Catholic MPs like myself have found it very difficult to vote for euthanasia measures. We are being lobbied very extensively by people who are desperately ill and dying to be able to have the right to...
But is in the danger if you set a precedent, it could be abused because it could extend it to people disabled, become for economic reasons, switching off life support machines and all of that.
Well, absolutely, and that's what we're worried about is the thin end of the wedge, as we say here, and somebody bumping off an elderly relative because they don't want to have the inconvenience of looking after them. I mean, that would be just
especially if the patient cannot actually make the decision himself or herself.
Yes, very much so. So we've got to be very, very careful on issues like abortion, on issues like this, and moral issues. There are free votes in the House of Commons, so we're not whipped in any way. But I haven't come to the conclusion as yet that we ought to legalise euthanasia. I know it's painful for people, but it's a big hurdle as a society to get
But they
over.
still have the option to go abroad and do it.
Yes, but then they would argue then that that's not fair,
Yes,
because obviously only some people can afford to fly to Switzerland and to perform this sort of thing.
The irony is, can afford this. Speaking of something about your constituency and Poland, you know, Craig Mackinlay in his, he said, oh, people should go and work in the field because all the fruit collectors, beautiful girls from Poland. And by the way, they are actually. I had 3 Polish girlfriends. They're all beautiful.
Wow,
Yeah,
Lithuania. But
yes.
What I would say to you on this is, he was very brave to say that. I had 3 jobs when I was at university.
Yeah.
I cleaned a family house, top to bottom, with all the toilets and everything and the garage once every week. I had that job every Saturday. I worked in a bar pulling pints. And we had to work very, very hard as students in order to pay for ourselves.
We did. My generation did, but then
and we enjoyed it. And we enjoyed it.
The generation a bit lazy on there.
Well, I wouldn't.
I'm an old man. I can say that. You're a young man.
I'm not going to say that. But I personally found it very, very enjoyable earning my own money at that time. And obviously, it's more difficult for them because they have tuition fees, which we didn't have in our time. But I got no money, and I had to make. I didn't want to take from my parents, and that's why I work. So it's a healthy compromise. I'm very pleased that we've now raised the threshold when people start to pay back.
But I think working along pretty girls, that would be a motive, at least for young men. Speaking of a constituency, I mean, what happened with this lack of security? Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Prime Minister, have you had a situation you've been heckled or threatened in your surgery? Or?
Oh yes, and if you go into politics, and particularly at election time, what upsets me though, and by the way, you have to take this with as part of the job, but what upsets me is that Mr. Corbyn has poisoned the well in British politics. The momentum grouping spreads hatred for the Conservative Party. Now, I have many friends in the Labour Party. I celebrate, rejoice at the fact that as a democratic society we can have a clash of views, hold one another to account, and through that process ultimately hopefully get better policies. So we don't live in a dictatorship, we don't have a one-party system, no party has a monopoly of wisdom, and I wanted to make this point to you, sir. It's very regrettable that Mr. Corbyn and the momentum are spreading such real hatred for their opponents. That shouldn't be the case in British politics.
You should see what we journalists are subjected to as well.
Well, I mean, one of the BBC correspondents had to have a bodyguard at the Labour Party conference.
Laura Konigsberg, exactly.
I've never come across anything quite like that.
And they were also from Momentum, from the Labour Party.
I've never come across anything quite like that. And I very much hope that he will rein them in, because we don't want a system where people, particularly young people, people from ethnic minorities, women, we don't want a system where people are put off and frightened of going into politics. That would be a disaster for all political parties.
This word of wisdom, then perhaps next few weeks we'll invite someone from a Labour MP to explain themselves. We thank Daniel Kawczynski very much for this wonderful contribution, and that's all what we have. And هذا كل ما لدينا، وإلى اللقاء الأسبوع القادم.